Here I am, confined within these walls, labeled as mentally disturbed. They call this place Blackwood Asylum, a stark contrast to the peaceful village of Oakhaven I once knew. The doctors, including the head psychiatrist, Dr. Eleanor Vance, oversee my care. They say my descent into this state was triggered by the loss of my dear friend and mentor, Dr. Alistair Finch. After his death, my grip on reality, and perhaps even my faith, began to unravel, ultimately leading me here. My time at Blackwood was disturbingly brief. Somehow, I managed to disappear from my room, overcoming the security staff. They say I even attacked and brutally murdered one of the junior physicians, Dr. Thomas Cross, before making my escape. The weeks leading up to that night marked a drastic change in my demeanor. The staff here often reported my mood shifting dramatically, particularly at night. Some even refused to work with me, unnerved by a chilling smirk that would sometimes flicker across my face, usually just before these shifts. Since my escape, months have passed, and I've found disturbing confirmation for some of the less outlandish things I spoke of. But other events, they seem too wild to admit publicly. Yet, some are horrifyingly, worryingly authentic. There is no denying it, Oakhaven is a strange place. Even stranger is the unsettling hold it has on some of its residents. A palpable atmosphere of superstition and fear hangs over the village like a heavy fog. Outsiders might dismiss the old tales of witches and monstrous creatures, but for many in Oakhaven, the line between reality and folklore is blurred. As a woman of science, I confess the strange history of Oakhaven is captivating, even intoxicating, like a hidden craving for the weird that you can't escape. You only have to walk through certain crumbling streets in the South End to see the odd symbols etched above doorways, a silent declaration that many in Oakhaven refuse to let the old ways die. Even here, at Blackwood, I saw things that defied explanation. I treated longtime Oakhaven residents who believed, with a conviction stronger than any conventional religion I've witnessed, that evil resides in the shadowed woods bordering the village. I've decided to share my account, Elara Vance's account, of my growing madness. Perhaps the scientific community can glean some insight into how such episodes take root and how they might be treated. And maybe, if any of the stranger events resonate with you, this statement will serve as a stark warning. A lesson against meddling in the affairs of certain circles who do not take kindly to outside interference. So, these are the last recorded words of Elara Vance, written before. What else do you want from me? I've told this story to the police, to the doctors here, to anyone who would listen. You have no right to keep me locked up. I committed no crime, harmed no one. I would still be free, and Oakhaven safe, if that lone passerby hadn't spotted me in the cemetery darkness that night and called the police. It would have been covered up, dealt with, and you would have remained blissfully ignorant of my involvement if those blundering officers hadn't interfered. You say I am mad. Perhaps you are right. But if you had reached the same horrifying conclusions about Alistair's fate, I'm certain you too would have taken desperate action. The police report will likely just state the bare facts. It won't add the chilling nuances that weave this whole affair together. It will dryly note that in the early morning of December 5th, Elara Vance, was found in the deepest part of Oakhaven Parish Cemetery. Discovered, it will say, disturbing a suspected burial site. Digging up the cold winter earth beneath an ancient, twisted yew tree where the remains of a wicked soul once lay. It will also claim that, in a fit of unrestrainable rage, I attacked 2 police officers with a shovel, knocking them unconscious so I could finish my grim work uninterrupted. It's not my sanity I fear for now, but the possession of my fragile mind and the body it currently inhabits. I am now horrifyingly aware that the mind, soul, and body are not the tightly bound entities the so-called experts believe. They are distinct spheres of influence. My only hope is that the truth of my tale is understood before a terrifyingly familiar dread takes hold of my mind. I question if wickedness or insanity are merely conditions of the mind, or perhaps a form of spiritual sickness? Can they be inherited, carried in the blood, passed down? Can they be transfused from parents to children? If so, what other darkness can be inherited, flowing through the roots of our family history? Is it possible that sin itself can plunge endlessly through the crimson rapids of our ancestors' veins, waiting patiently to emerge in the next generation? I confess, I am uncertain about the authenticity of what I am about to tell you. The terrible truth is, ever since I came to Blackwood, I can't be sure if what happened was real or just a dream. Even now, I question if I am awake or merely dreaming that I am awake. The veil between reality and hallucination is frighteningly thin. Who can truly say from which side of the curtain we are peeking? Listen. Please, listen to me. I implore you to heed my words. There is something wicked lurking in the backwoods and borders of our village. Its earthly bindings may be destroyed, but the potency of its spirit remains. In time, it will find a new vessel and turn its powers against us. For the sake of my soul and Alistair's, I will try to recount the blasphemous chain of events that led me to the grave of Silas Vane, the occupant of that hidden burial chamber. I took his body and immersed it in acid until nothing but bubbling black sludge remained. Alistair Finch had been a family friend for as long as I could remember. A devout man, he was the local minister in Oakhaven since I was a young girl. The community adored him. He never married, had little family of his own, and I think he saw my mother in me as his own. After my father passed away from a heart attack in my late teens, my bond with Alistair deepened. He nurtured me through that difficult time, shaping me into the woman I am today. For that, I owe him a debt, one I hope I came close to repaying when I finally destroyed the horror that had afflicted his life that lonely December night. Alistair was a true paragon. Godly, honorable, wise. He seemed devoid of the vices and flaws most of us carry. I never once saw him angry, or fearful, or detached. Not until the very end. Despite his near-saintly demeanor, he was incredibly human and deeply interested in science as well as faith. He would occasionally say Darwin's theories made sense and enjoyed books on biology, chemistry, physics, and history. He was remarkably well-rounded. His belief in God never wavered, he simply integrated his understanding of the world with his love for humanity and the Almighty. When I came of age, I decided to follow in his footsteps and join the ministry. My mother wasn't thrilled, but Alistair was so proud. His approval fueled my desire to serve God and my community. My mother had always been cold towards Alistair, even though he was so close to us. I suspected they had feelings for each other once, which turned sour around the time I was born. My father never let it affect his friendship with Alistair. They were like brothers until my father's last breath. It was Alistair who was at my father's bedside, speaking kind words as he struggled for breath, and who gave a moving eulogy at the funeral. I never heard my mother mention my father's death again after that, nor did I ever see her cry. She just grew colder, more distant with everyone, including me and Alistair. Because of that, I didn't feel burdened by my decision to leave Oakhaven. My heart was light at the prospect. Alistair supported my choice to join the ministry. As I spoke with officials from the diocese and interviewed with the bishop, my resolve only strengthened. By the time I secured my place at theological college, my mother had somewhat accepted my choice, but she never offered her blessing or encouragement. The college was far from Oakhaven, a long train journey away. Alistair and I kept in touch weekly by letter. His handwritten notes, often in a stiff card envelope, were always a welcome sight. Our correspondence wasn't thrilling, but his letters of encouragement guided me through difficult studies and ignited a conviction only he could coax from me. Months of grueling study passed. I won't lie, I occasionally regretted my choice. During those moments of doubt, I'd call my mother. She'd delight in my wavering resolve and beg me to come home. It was confusing, since her emotional absence was part of why I left. But Alistair's letters always pulled me back, keeping me on the path I'd chosen. During rare breaks, I'd return to Oakhaven and visit Alistair. We'd discuss our letters, but I noticed a drastic change in his interests. He was now ferociously researching local history, folklore, and other esoteric matters, details that were lost on me. I'd make a token effort to visit my mother, but the cold silence that fell over the kitchen as we sat together over tea was becoming unbearable. Once or twice, I felt like she wanted to confide in me, but she'd stop herself, instead asking sarcastically about Alistair's well-being before reaffirming her disapproval of my studies. As time passed, these visits to Oakhaven stopped entirely. I buried myself deeper in theological pursuits, relying solely on Alistair's letters for news of my mother. Some weeks later, I noticed a gradual shift in my routine. Absorbed in my studies, I hadn't realized Alistair's letters had abruptly stopped. I waited a week before writing to him, hoping for a response, but none came. I assumed he was engrossed in his own studies, a habit of his to deep dive into a topic before moving on. Honestly, focused on my own work, I welcomed the break from writing weekly updates. This silence lasted nearly 5 weeks. Then, a letter from Alistair arrived on a Friday morning. I was on my way out, so I opened and read it while walking to the local parish where I was assisting. Dodging traffic, I read the note, folded it, and tucked it away, determined to reply as soon as possible. As best as I can recall, that long-delayed letter read, "My dearest Elara, first, please accept my sincerest apologies for my recent silence. As you might have guessed, I've stumbled upon a fascinating area of Oakhaven history directly involving our parish from centuries ago. This is hardly an excuse for neglecting you, and I am truly sorry if my absence caused worry. Please read on, and I shall attempt to explain. I've been investigating our parish's history and discovered an obscure piece of information. It points to a witch trial occurring right here in our community, well after the Witchcraft Act of 1735 had made such practices non-punishable. Imagine the scandal. Our quiet Oakhaven became involved in such a sordid affair, long after the Crown ceased acknowledging such matters. Details are sparse, much of it seems to have been conducted in secret, later records destroyed to prevent discovery. Now, here is the truly captivating part. The person tried and executed for witchcraft is none other than a distant relative of mine on my mother's side, Silas Vane. This is how I unearthed certain details. They were hidden within my family's records for over a century. The whole matter has me deeply excited. I'm awaiting information from several sources, but I believe I'm close to uncovering the truth. I have reason to suspect this ancestor is buried here, in the parish cemetery. I cannot find a marked grave, but I've read witches were sometimes buried in unmarked plots, a curse upon their name and a final punishment for consorting with the devil. It was also a precaution, folklore says, so their coven couldn't unearth the remains and restore them to life. But I'm getting ahead of myself. How have you been, my girl? I look forward to hearing about the past few weeks I've missed. Please share all the details. I understand you'll finish your first year soon. Once you have, I ask you to come stay with me in Oakhaven. We have much to discuss regarding my findings. Take care, Elara. Yours truly, Alistair. The letter didn't unnerve me at all. It was just like him to find a new topic to obsess over. I thought little of it. Alistair had always been that way. I was sure his next letter would be about something completely different. I wrote a brief reply that night, nothing too revealing, just a passive interest in his research and an update on my studies. I accepted his invitation to visit Oakhaven and said I'd love to spend time with him. After finishing my first year, I came home for Christmas. To my delight, my mother invited Alistair for lunch. Christmas is busy for ministers, but I was grateful for our snatched conversations. To my surprise, Alistair hadn't dropped his inquiries into his ancestor and the witch trials. In fact, it was almost all he spoke about during my short stay. He was particularly excited, believing he'd found Silas Vane's resting place. Over brandy, he described in detail how at the very back of the cemetery, near where Serpent's Coil would begin to encroach, there was a small cluster of yew trees. They were called that because witches were once hanged from them. He believed Silas was buried beneath one of these trees, a precaution based on old beliefs that tree roots would pin the witch's body and soul, preventing them from rising and seeking vengeance. The next morning, he took me to see the copse. Even in daylight, it was a dark, desolate place. The trees looked more dead than alive, their branches twisted and dry, groaning like floorboards in the wind. Here, beneath the dark earth, Alistair was convinced Silas's body lay. I can't say I was worried then. I believed his interest was purely historical, that he was just an enthusiastic amateur. In hindsight, the warning signs were undeniable. I visited Oakhaven sporadically during my second and third years. Subconsciously, I was outgrowing the place. I was becoming the woman I wanted to be, feeling renewed independence from both Alistair and my mother. It was in my final year that I first heard the growing rumors about Alistair's radical change in behavior. The source? None other than my mother. There was a disturbing satisfaction in her tone as she recounted the distasteful things he was being accused of. He was apparently drinking heavily, meeting unsavory types after dark. Strange visitors were seen in the cemetery at night. He was, she claimed, keeping company with odd strangers who spoke in foreign tongues and wore bizarre clothing. Loud, violent noises at night were becoming common for his neighbors. Voices were heard emanating from the rectory at all hours. There was even talk of missing pets in the village, particularly Mrs. Gable's tabby cat, Pumpkin, and old Mr. Peterson's greyhound. Max was a stray, always getting into trouble, tipping bins, chasing chickens. Some assumed he'd run off or been hit by a car, but many suspected something more ominous. Pumpkin, however, rarely left the Gable home. Many blamed the eldest son, Leo, known for his cruelty. But when the decayed, headless body of a cat and the severed head of a greyhound were found discarded in Serpent's Coilwood the day after Walpurgis, many began to suspect Alistair's sinister new acquaintances were responsible. The most disturbing revelation was Alistair's face. It had taken on a peculiar expression, a sardonic smirk that deeply unnerved those who saw it. The expression was utterly alien to him, twisting his face until he looked like a stranger. The bishop had even issued him a formal warning. At the time, I found it all impossible to believe. These evils attributed to my friend were just village gossip, fueled by Oakhaven's usual superstitions, something for the older folk to grumble about. I refused to accept the rumors. Soon, however, I was caught in the unsettling changes in Alistair's life. Again, there was a period of silence. These gaps in our correspondence had become more frequent. But this time, I started to worry. The rumors churned in my mind, and the silence between letters grew longer. I hadn't heard from him in perhaps 4 months. When a letter finally arrived, it was far more disturbing than anything he'd ever written. It filled me with an urgent need to see him, to help. It arrived unexpectedly. Though it looked like his, the writing was so hastily scrawled I thought it was from a stranger. Alistair's frantic words echoed in my mind. Elara. I'm afraid to tell you this, but I fear I've gone down a dark and winding path. I have descended so far, stared so deeply into the blackness, I don't know if I can find my way back to the light. My meddling in the parish's past, in my own family history, has brought only misery. I am doomed. It's the dreams, Elara, the hideous dreams. I dream constantly, so much so I can no longer tell what is real. I often dream of a cold, godless place, devoid of warmth. Above me, I see twisting black roots worming down like serpents. I can't move my arms or legs. My body is trapped in a casket, a buried, rotting, maggot-infested casket. When I wake, the clock always says 3 a.m., the witching hour. By the time you read this, I might not be at the parish. I must leave this place, leave Oakhaven, and never return. I have dire matters to attend to. Most importantly, I must return what I have called. He has his own black designs, and I must ensure they never come to fruition. In my lucid moments, I'm formulating a plan. But I must be careful, lest he suspects me. I must be decisive, deliberate, and conceal everything from him before the sun sets and his time begins. He has his ways, I know, but I have mine. I know of ancient formulas and symbols that can ward off his spirit, powerful as it may be. Once this evil is returned to the cold ground, his remains must be destroyed. Fire isn't enough, it leaves too much intact. It needs something stronger, something that will obliterate him. Then I will leave. I've spoken with the bishop, we agree you are ready to take my place. May you guide these people better than I. Elara, if I fail, I can only offer this warning, fear that which lurks beneath the yew tree. Do not invite it in. It will make a home within you and work its black magic through you. It will summon those who lurk at the threshold, those unnameable blasphemies from the great outside. And then, my friend, we are all ruined. God bless you. Alistair. To say the letter disturbed me would be a vast understatement. I had never known Alistair to be so panicked, and yet here he was, saying his soul was in jeopardy. I spoke with my superiors, but I didn't show them the note. I feared they would question his sanity, potentially damaging his already fragile reputation. No, I had to speak to him first. A few days later, I was on a train bound for Oakhaven. I disembarked at the nearby station and caught a rickety bus into the village, arriving midday. I hurried towards the parish church. Several locals recognized me, and I had to pause for polite exchanges, doing my best not to show my panic. Inside, a crippling dread grew with every step. At the church gates, I found them closed but unlocked. I pushed the heavy iron frame inward and walked past the small stone fountain. It was dry, silent, not flowing with its usual gentle sound. The benches around it were empty, as was the entire churchyard. The disturbing quiet of the place was palpable. I headed for the church doors, they were locked. Puzzled, I looked around. Alistair should have been inside, preparing for evening service. I picked up my bags and went around to the small house at the back. His front door was locked too. Curtains were open, and I peeked inside, seeing no sign of life. I toured the perimeter, knocking, calling, before returning to the front. I tried to tell myself there was a mundane explanation. Maybe he was out getting supplies. That brief relief shattered as a gruff voice called out from the cemetery. "Minister's gone, lass, don't reckon he's coming back." I turned, feebly battling the wind that whipped autumn leaves around me. "Mr. Silas? Is that you?" I called, already knowing the answer. Old Mr. Silas, the groundskeeper, his tall, wiry frame slowly emerged from behind a large headstone. He had a small shovel, no doubt tending the earth as he always had. Despite the chill, he wiped his brow, waved, and picked up his tools. As he walked towards me, his long white hair and beard billowing in the wind, I couldn't shake thoughts of ancient figures. With his height and kind, wizened face, he reminded me of tales of old, of guardians from the earth. "Sorry, lass, didn't mean to startle you," he said. "Heard the gate, figured I'd let you look first." No, it's fine, Mr. Silas, I replied. What did you mean, Alistair's gone? Best come inside, girl, he said solemnly. Minister left me instructions for you, and his keys. Come on, I'll make tea. He placed a large hand on my shoulder. Won't lie, Elara, got some queer things to tell you. He unlocked the front door, the lock clunking heavily. He entered, and I followed, still confused. He went straight to the kitchen, put on the kettle, and rolled a cigarette. Hungry? He asked, gesturing to some biscuits. Later, perhaps, I managed a weak smile. The brewing tea offered a small comfort. Alistair always liked strong tea. I put down my bags. The room was spotless, just as I remembered. Mr. Silas, with his wild beard and dirt-stained clothes, looked out of place. He was engrossed in his cigarette, making me impatient. Mr. Silas, if something's happened, please tell me, I pressed. He poured 2 cups, handed me one with milk, lit his cigarette, and sighed. There's no easy way, Elara. Alistair's left the parish. His ways have unnerved folks. The bishop felt it best he leave, at least for a few months. I nodded, stunned. I took Alistair's last letters from my pocket and handed them to him. He took them in his large hands, nodding and sighing as he read, occasionally rereading. Finished, he handed them back, sipped his tea. Do they mean anything to you? I asked. A little, he said. He talked a lot about that witchcraft business. I knew some of it, especially those trees out back. Used to play in Serpent's Coilwood as a boy, always talk about how evil that place was. You're from Oakhaven, heard the tales of creatures, how old Whisperwind would get you after sundown. Whisperwind, I smiled faintly, remembering my grandfather warning me away from the woods. Stay away from those woods, girl, he'd say. Whisperwind, Whispering Pete, some call him. On 3 legs he goes. He'll trick you with a voice, you know. That's just an old tale, Mr. Silas, I said. Alistair would never take such talk seriously. Imps and familiars, it's just childish superstition. Can't argue there, he said. But it was the weird changes in him I wanted to tell you about, not this witchy nonsense. He tapped the letters. Such as? I asked. Folks complained to the bishop about his nightly doings. They say he was meeting shady types, involved in missing parish money, a fair sum, they say. Then the strange sounds and lights from the cemetery. Mother told me about this, I said. I didn't want to believe her, she never liked Alistair much. It wasn't just that, Elara, he continued. It was his whole manner. Stopped caring about the community. Grew slack in his duty, not like him at all. Became cruel, morose. A stranger. Unsettled folks. He finished his tea. So there was a village meeting, he went on. The bishop agreed he should leave. Don't know where he went, but they want you to take over, if you're willing. At least until a replacement is found. He stood, opened a drawer, and produced a sealed letter. It bore the diocese mark. Opening it, the contents confirmed it. I was stunned. I was meant to be a curate under Alistair, not vicar. Why didn't the bishop speak to me directly? I asked. Mr. Silas shrugged. Something else you should know, Elara. Brace yourself. This will upset you. I stiffened. Some believe Alistair might be dead. He raised a hand as I gasped. Let me finish. Some believe he's dead, but that doesn't make it true. but no one's seen him since he left. Jed Miller heard a rumor. A man just like Alistair was seen by the locks a few nights ago, down by the canal that runs through the lowlands. Ranting, raving, like arguing with himself. Jed went to see, swears he saw Alistair throw himself into the locks. Told the police, but they found nothing amiss. Thought you should know before hearing it worse elsewhere. My world crashed down. It was too much. Everyone has faults, but these developments, combined with Alistair's letter and the news he might have killed himself, and the expectation I take his place. I need time, Mr. Silas, I said, standing. He nodded. Understand. No one expects you to hold service yet. Folks are just glad you're here. You don't have to do anything public till you're ready. A replacement will come. And try not to worry about Jed Miller, he's half drunk most times. I'm sure Alistair's fine. Probably just taking time. He pointed to keys on the table. These are yours. I best get back to work. Need me, just say so. Hope you'll stay. He patted my shoulder and left. I was left alone, my mind a whirlwind of confusion. What chaos had I returned to? It took time to settle in. I avoided town, saw few visitors, mostly gossip seekers. I dismissed them, focusing on genuine well-wishers, depressingly few. Besides Mr. Silas, I only spoke to my mother, unsupportive, offering snipes about the man who'd been like a father. I spent time in the church, doing chores, wandering the cemetery. I'd see Mr. Silas, have brief, pleasant, sterile chats about the weather. Days grew colder. I'd bring him tea and food as he worked, especially near the feral brambles of Serpent's Coilwood. He was good company, but we ran out of things to say. I stayed in touch with Bishop Albright, who offered support. He was confident a replacement would be found but avoided details, knowing my closeness to Alistair. During one cemetery walk, I decided to revisit the yew trees Alistair showed me. I'd explored most of the yard, so I walked the lonesome back stretch, crowded with crumbling headstones, names worn away. In the shadow of those trees stood the oldest stones. Many leaned, some toppled, covered in moss. I passed them, trying to decipher names, until I reached the yews. Tucked at the back, in the deepest shadow of a diseased tree, I saw freshly excavated ground. I approached, noticing a small carved stone half buried in the soil. Green with moss. I ran my hand over it, pulling off moss easily. Beneath, an inscription and date were chiseled into the sandstone. Here lies Silas Vane, beloved by the devil, unforgotten by his disciples. 1751 AD. The carving was old, eroded. As I pulled the stone out, I saw a newer carving on the back. An odd symbol, a hieroglyph. Like a pagan pentagram, but the lines were broken, independent points, with a lozenge-shaped eye in the middle. A small flame where the pupil should be. It felt heathen, I'd never seen it like that. The stone was only 10 inches high, not a tombstone, but serving the same purpose. Instinctively, I dropped it, rubbing dirt from my hands. I felt I'd touched something evil, my soul brushed by the eldritch nature of whatever darkness it marked. Then Alistair's last words echoed. Fear that which lurks beneath the yew tree. Do not invite it in, for it will make for itself a home within you and through you work its black magic. The hour was late. The dimming sun cast the darkness of Serpent's Coilwood over me. I had to get back, hurrying to the house before the sun vanished behind those vile trees. Inside, I sighed with relief, then made supper. I couldn't shake Alistair's warning. Driven by a need to confirm his words, I retrieved his letters and found the one about witchcraft. I unfolded it, rereading until the warning. I'd remembered it exactly. Unnerved, I put the letters away. A moment later, Mr. Silas came in, grumbling about the cold. He helped himself to tea, sat down, and rolled a cigarette. I waited, then broached the subject. "Mr. Silas, did Alistair ever mention a grave near the woods?" He put down his tobacco. "I saw him looking over it often. Told me it was a witch's grave, hung centuries ago, one of the last in England, he reckoned. And that's what he was studying before he changed?" He nodded, lit his cigarette. "Studying is one way. Obsession is another. He converted the cellar here into a study. A library, I guess. Filled it with queer books. Latin, sure, but German, languages I didn't know. Moved chemicals and equipment down there too. Didn't recognize most of it. Place stinks. Is it still there?" I asked. "No. Reckon he took most when the bishop told him to leave. Might be a bit left, but you'd be lucky." We sat in silence. He read a paper. I thought. The next day, on a hunch, I contacted the nearby college. The head, a jovial man, was happy to talk. He confirmed Alistair had corresponded with him about lab equipment and chemicals. He listed complex names, oblivious to my ignorance. I thanked him, hung up. A few more pieces fit, but they were too far apart to form a clear picture. Witchcraft and science. Chemistry and an ancient grave? How did they connect? Determined, I visited the cellar to study. The entrance was in the kitchen, a narrow door I thought was a cupboard. It had cold stone steps leading down. Cramped shelves held mundane items, candles, paint cans, and thankfully, a working torch. I took it, descended. The ceiling was low, terrifyingly claustrophobic. At the bottom, an open doorway led into a square room. Low ceiling, musty smell. A large, rotting table, sagging shelves, dusty with evidence of many books. Bare chemical equipment, empty bottles. My torchlight caught large bottles on another shelf. Full of clear yellow liquid, others brown oil. Some labeled alchemical solvent. Beyond, a door. This confused me, no outside entrance to the cellar. The door looked ancient, rusted with a bolt, handle barely attached. As I neared, the torchlight hit a carving above the frame. That curious symbol from Silas Vane's stone. I traced it. A chill spread, the same as by the yews. This time, I pushed fear away. I took the handle, pushed inward. It didn't lead outside. Another set of stone stairs led further down. The stench that hit me was foul. A putrid mix of acid and decay. An ungodly, malignant scent. I stepped back, covered my nose. For a moment, I considered leaving. But curiosity pulled me down. What lay below would haunt me. A second chamber. Not a study, but the devil's workshop. Strange images carved, painted, many symbols from the grave. Spheres, eyes, snake-like tendrils forming alien text. Objects nailed to the ceiling, rusted tools, twisted twigs with human outlines. The table was the crowning horror. A long stone slab, like a butcher's block, stained reddish-brown. Grooves led to a hole, a rusted iron bucket below. The stench came from there. Bending, I saw the glistening, rotting hind limb of a dog. Maggots writhed. Bile rose, but I swallowed it. Shelves lined the walls, filled with manuscripts, papers, jars. The scene felt ancient. Among the papers, a small linen bag. A brown stain made me hesitate. Inside were tiny white objects. Tipping them out, inspecting them, children's teeth. By then, the smell was unbearable. I had to leave. I spied a frayed notebook on the table. A strange woodblock image on the cover caught my eye. I grabbed it, tucked it in my jacket, and fled to the sanity of the house. I tore off my jacket, threw it down. The stench clung to me. I opened all the windows. The chill air might purify the horror. Tired, my mind spinning, I collapsed into bed. I don't know how long I slept when the first terrible dream came. Time was warped, but the sun was still out when I jolted awake, sweating. I don't know if it was Alistair's letter or the chamber below. I was in the cemetery, but different. Fewer tombstones. Serpent's coil would look wilder. The sky was a black abyss, punctured by glittering stars. The moon crept up, casting pale light. Shadows detached from stones, crawling towards me. I stepped back, but they found me, chilling me. Then, from the brambles, it came. Hopping, gambling. The awful form of Whisperwind. On 3 legs. The sleek body of a greyhound, the head of a cat. Eyes milky, glowing faintly. Reddish syrup dripped from feline jaws, hissing on the ground. It paused to scratch, but it was the missing back leg trying the impossible task. A raw stump gestured feebly. Beyond it, a man. Even at a distance, his repulsiveness was clear. Tall, thin. Long, slender fingers like twigs. Long nose, sunken eyes. Worst, a sardonic, wolfish grin. Hunger in that smirk. Then Whisperwind stopped scratching. In a hollow voice, my mother's voice, it spoke. Come, child. Come. We have delights for you. Marmalade, marzipan, baked treats. Seed cakes, toffee apples. All your heart desires. Come into the forest. I will show you wonders. I felt pulled to those words. The man grinned silently. I can't, I stuttered. It's dark. Mother expects me for supper. Supper? Whisperwind replied, licking its chops. Oh, we shall have supper, won't we, master? The imp looked at the man. He stayed silent but nodded. I tried to turn, but my feet marched me towards certain demise. Mother! I cried. Mother, please, I'm scared. The terrible man laughed. Whisperwind rubbed against his blood-stained breeches, a wheezing purr coming from it. Mother! I cried again. The word mercifully pulled me back from the edge of dream madness. Mother, I whimpered, awake, in my bed. The dream unnerved me. It consumed my thoughts for days. I didn't dare sleep that first day, drinking strong coffee. When I finally slept, the dreams were less vivid. I felt their presence but woke myself before they fully appeared. I often dreamt of Serpent's coilwood and the yew trees. The manuscript lay forgotten until I found it a week later under newspapers Mr. Silas collected. The grotesque printing on the front startled me again. Sitting down, I saw a dozen figures. Crones, hags on black goats, other creatures. Furtive figures dancing, copulating with the crones. Smaller figures, imps, familiars. Many had odd names in early English. But one, a 3-legged hound with a cat's head, had a name that stopped my heart. Beside it, Whisperwind. Images of the nightmare flashed. There was no title. I opened it. Printed boldly, The Oakhaven Codex, Rites of the Twilight Path. No author or date. Flicking through, it fell open halfway. A chapter referenced many times. Calling upon thy black imp. Like a cookbook, a repulsive recipe. Half profane instruction, half incantation. Odious images followed, a gnarled crone chopping rabbits, cats, dogs, calves. I put the manuscript in the drawer with Alistair's letters. Let me know in the comments if you've ever felt a place was watching you, holding its breath, waiting. Days, weeks passed. I managed to push away the manuscript, Alistair, the dreams. The dreams lingered but released me. My sleep improved. I resumed duty as stand-in minister, opening the church. Locals were slow to return, but Sundays grew busy. I welcomed new faces. I allowed myself to forget the black magic, imps, witches, focusing on serving my community with curates sent by the bishop. I even bricked up the cellar entrance to the hidden room. Thoughts of Alistair still crept in, short, less sinister dreams. I resigned myself to never seeing him again. I spent more time with my mother, rekindled old friendships. I knew the diocese was grooming me to replace Alistair, struggling with conflicting feelings. I had developed a firmness of mind, carrying on. Growing my flock. Welcoming light into hearts. But this peace ended abruptly. With an event both horrifying and absurd. Something I would have welcomed once, now filling me with cold dread. For the first time, I heard from Alistair. A note that plunged me back into madness. It was from him, but unrecognizable. Not his hand, or anyone sane. A child's scribble. Cramped, fighting itself. Torn from a book, property of Oakhaven Library on the back. Damp, gritty sediment. The content, as best as I recall. Elara. Not much time before these hands aren't mine. Meet it back to my body. Feel him pulling me back to his. Don't think I can escape again. We'll try. Do this for me. Please. Beneath the tree, I am beneath the tree and in pain. His spirit is free now. It wants you. My body is not suitable, yours is better. Please, dig up the earth under the tree. Take what you find and burn it. Not fire, must be acid. Take the alchemical solvent and drench his remains. None of the essential salts must survive. Understand? He can return with fire. Dying slowly in the ground. Cannot stand the blackness. I am myself for moments, back here to write this. Soon, I must return to soil. My fault. Called him, he answered. So sorry for bringing you into this madness. Do as I ask. Alistair. The note must have been delivered by hand. No stamp, no address, just Elara scrawled on the front. I needed air. A brisk walk through the village. The sun was setting, but a cutting wind pierced me. Oakhaven was quiet. I saw few people as I walked a loop back to the church. Chaos swirled. Back home, I collapsed into a chair. It weighed on me, Alistair, mad or victim of black sorcery. If God was real, surely the devil was too? This wasn't madness, it felt terrifyingly real. As darkness fell, I was drawn to the brandy. I drank heartily. The warmth was welcome. By the fourth glass, I was drowsy. I stumbled to bed. For the first time in weeks, the dreams returned. I tossed, turned. My mind buzzed. Half-imagined fears danced. The horrid sense of being watched. My spirit lifted from my body, seeing a dark figure in the corner, eyes gleaming with hunger. I saw Whisperwind leap onto my bed, pawing playfully at my lips. "This one will do nicely," the imp spoke, my mother's voice again. "This one, master, and then we are free." When the morning light shone, I banished the dread. But each night it returned. I held sermons, trying to comfort myself, preaching fiery conviction that Jesus defeated death and the devil. It helped, but normal comfort eluded me. Days after his note, I learned Alistair's body was found. The coroner ruled drowning, though it was far from water. The funeral followed. I led the service. More people came than expected. I even saw my mother weep. Eventually, the dreams and Alistair's death weighing on me, I decided to leave the parish, leave the church. My dream was a nightmare. I planned to leave Oakhaven entirely. Never step foot on its haunted streets. It wasn't a good place to linger. I planned to relocate. This decision brought some comfort. I hoped it would all be behind me. I didn't tell the bishop. He tried to stop me. 2 months to wrap up my affairs. As fate would have it, that decision was stolen on the awful night to come. The sense of peace might have lasted, but the crowning horror invaded that dark December night. I went to bed early. Rain lashed relentlessly. I slept fitfully, thrashing. The most vivid, horrid dream. Confined, bound in darkness. Arms worked, legs numb. Struggling to escape. Body a marionette, strings tangled. After eternity, I mustered strength. Pushing up. Past rotting wood, wet earth. Past worms, tangled roots. To the cold, rain-lashed surface. I awoke suddenly. Sat upright, sweating. Not the dream. The church bells. Ringing. Piercing the night. My clock, just past 3 a.m. The witching hour. I sprang from bed. Dressing gown. The noise would wake the village. I'd be blamed. Down the stairs, out the kitchen door into the cold rain. Slippers soaked up muddy water. Cold muck between my toes. Determined to stop the bells, I fumbled with keys. But the door was ajar. I pushed in, went to the main hall. Towards the bell chamber. The ringing stopped. I slowed. Bending to catch my breath, I saw a disgusting trail of mud and slime. Snaking from the doorway, through the hall, towards the bell chamber. I knelt, swiped my fingers through the sludge. A charnel stench, like the cellar. I pulled out a handkerchief, wiped my fingers. I had to find the cause. A mundane explanation? Someone broke in? Diversion? But the trail. Nothing valuable to steal. No desire to confront a burglar. I entered the dark chamber. A sliver of light from street lamps. I saw the 6 ropes. All still but one, swaying gently. Foul-smelling mud on the ground, on the rope. I placed my hand on it, it stopped. Then, in the corner, a shape. My eyes adjusted. At first, a bundle of rags, twisted sticks. Then, creeping horror. A terrible recognition. What did I see? Simple, yet difficult. The crux of it all. On the ground, face, no, skull, pressed to the stone. Ancient bones, mummified flesh. Chunks of reeking earth, flayed skin. A brown, spindly thing. More bone than meat. A whitish, cracked dome for a head. Wrapped around its spine, near the neck, a rotted hangman's noose. Then a muffled, strange sound. Whisper and growl. Human and bestial. Disembodied, echoing, yet focused on that mass. It ululated into a cry that shook my soul. The voice was Alistair Finch's. The corpse thing spoke a single sentence before falling silent. "Elara, for the love of God, please." Those who spoke to me know the rest. Half mad, howling with fear and fury. I got the yellow chemicals from the cellar. With the rotting bundle, I threw it all into the self-exhumed grave of Silas Vane. Police officers came. I fought them off. Continued my task. Dissolving the mess into acrid sludge. Watching it bubble. The earth reluctantly absorbs the mass. Despite the horror, relief washed over me. The chaos of months snapped into view like a knot unraveling. Madness gave way to clarity. This is the end of my account. Not the end of the matter. There was no doubt. Beneath that yew tree, beneath the cold earth of that hidden grave, Alistair's soul had been trapped for months. He called up his ancestor's wicked soul, for reasons I can only guess. He wasn't strong enough to control what he summoned. He paid with his life and soul. A terrifying spiritual transfusion. Silas took Alistair's body. Alistair was forced into Silas's. Alistair somehow controlled his body long enough to throw it into the river, hoping to end the evil that lived in him. Alistair became a mere consciousness. Silas's spirit roamed free. As the ancient which renewed his covenant conjured imps, Alistair's mind, fully aware, understood he inhabited Silas Vane's 200-year-old corpse. The one hung for crimes. Who bargained with devils. Who slept restlessly under the earth, his presence felt by those who dared enter serpent's coil. Who dreamt only of torment and vengeance on the descendants of those who buried him. Dreams of dark oaths. Those terrible, blasphemous dreams. The dreams beneath the yew tree. Like and subscribe if this story gives you chills. Stay safe out there.